Alright, welcome back. We're going to review Pete's Dragon. It's directed by David Lowery, who's mostly done shorts. It's written by Todd Halebrooks, who's worked with David Lowery on some of the shorts, and Lowery is also listed as a writer. It stars Oakes Figley, who is Pete. He's been in Boardwalk Empire and Person of Interest. It stars Ona Lawrence. She plays Natalie. She's been in Bad Moms and Southpaw. I believe that she was Jake Gyllenhaal's daughter. Bryce Dallas Howard plays Grace. She's been in The Help and most recently Jurassic World. Robert Redford plays Meacham. He's been in Captain America Winter Soldier, a very classic movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Paul Newman, and also another classic movie, All the President's Men. Lastly, Carl Urban. He's been in Dredd. He's played Bones in the most recent Star Trek movies. And he's also been in the Almost Human TV series. Synopsis. The adventures of an orphan boy named Pete and his best friend Elliot, who just also happens to be a dragon. The movie starts off with Robert Redford talking to a group of children about how he met a dragon when he was younger. With Robert Redford's character, he narrates the movie. Bryce Dallas Howard's character, who is Grace, is his daughter, and she states that his stories are just nonsense and the children shouldn't believe it. She is either forest ranger or park ranger. The movie takes place in somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I don't believe that it says where, and it also seems like it's somewhere set during the mid-70s to early 80s. Grace seems like either she's a sheriff or a park ranger, but she's concerned about nature. She's concerned about the forest that she and her father used to hike in. So Carl Urban and his brother, who is Bryce Dallas Howard's boyfriend, they're both loggers. Grace's character has some interplay with Gavin, Carl Urban, and her boyfriend trying to thwart their efforts to destroy areas where they're logging for trees. And during one of those incidents, Bryce Dallas Howard brings their daughter along, who is Ona Lawrence Natalie. So Bryce Dallas Howard and Carl Urban's brother get into an argument. And Natalie kind of wanders off because she hears something off in the distance. So it shows Oakes Figley, Pete. Pete is looking at her, and he runs off. She runs after him, and then she discovers him. After they find Natalie, and Natalie finds Pete, Grace tries to talk to Pete about where he came from, why is he living in the woods by himself, and then takes him into town. She's forced to keep him for a couple of days. And during that couple of days, Pete is a fish out of the water. He's not accustomed to this society because he's been living in the woods by himself. And eventually he starts talking about how he met a dragon living in the forest, which is similar to the story that Robert Redford's character had mentioned earlier. So Grace picks up on that, and that's where I'm going to stop with the movie. So here are some of my impressions. The movie starts off with a couple of nature shots, which is very similar to Emmanuel Lubezki's style of photography. Emmanuel Lubezki has done Children of Men, The Revenant. He's Terrence Malick's and Alfonso Cuarón's go-to DOP. And the DOP on this one is Boudron Bozelli. He's done The Ring, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is a movie that I liked, and also The Lone Ranger, which is not, we'll just not talk about that one. But there's very beautiful shots of nature in this, which again is in the style of Emmanuel Lubezki. So if you see The Revenant, or if you've seen Children of Men, you might pick up on a lot of subtlety and a lot of hints that the styles are relatively similar. So initially I thought this movie was going to be more in the style of the Jungle Book, but it's slightly a little bit Spielbergian vibe, but not in the bad way. And it also kind of reminded me of Tarzan. Pete is living in the woods by himself, and he befriends the dragon that he calls Elliot. So Elliot acts more in this movie like a dog than a dragon, at least initially. So they're friends. People stumble upon him this movie is trying to say things about nature, protecting nature, preserving landscapes, and not harming the environment. So it seems that there's some undertones for that. And also some other things, as I mentioned, that it seemed to have a Spielberg vibe. It also reminded me a little bit of Super 8, which is a J.J. Abrams Spielberg movie, as well as The Never-Ending Story. And what I got was something entirely different. And that difference is a very tonally shifting movie. So where you had Mowgli in The Jungle Book interacting with a lot of CG characters because he's the only human, that this one has Pete interacting with a lot of humans. So it's similar in the aspect that they're children that were left in the woods or their environments by themselves, and they have grown accustomed to nature and grown accustomed to the animals around them and respecting nature. And that's where some of the similarities end, because Pete spends a lot of time in the movie with humans, but since he hasn't interacted with humans, he's a fish out of water. He's a person that this situation is alien to him. It's him learning from Natalie's character and also from Grace's character, and eventually Robert Redford's character. They want to help him be back into the environment. So with Carl Urban's character, who's Gavin, he's the antagonist. So eventually, no one has known to draw dragons, seen dragons, except for Pete. Pete is telling people that he has seen dragons. No one wants to believe him. Gavin's character hears something in the woods. He goes to look for it. He brings a group of guys. They find out that there is a dragon living in the woods, and they try to go back to capture it. So there's a point that they encountered the dragon, and that's kind of where the movie really begins to take shape. It's a very heartfelt movie. This movie is really about what happens with the divide between children and adults. I'll describe that. So Bryce Dallas Howard's character was younger at some point, hearing her father talk about how he had met a dragon, and then she stopped believing. So a lot of this movie is about believing in the possible, dreaming, childhood, and just what happens with the shift when you become an adult. And with most of the adults in this movie, or most of the people of age in this movie, they have a slightly negative tone until towards the end of the movie. So the big thing is just about reuniting Pete with Elliot, and that's how the movie ends. So there's a lot of things kind of in the middle of that the movie is straightforward. I mean, it's been an animated movie before, so it's not too much of a spoiler, but I have not seen the animated movie in a while, so might revisit that at some point. In all, I thought it was a solid movie. It could have been better. Again, I expected The Jungle Book, and what I got was something slightly less than that, where The Jungle Book, to me, would be a movie that's about an 8 or a 9. This will give a 6. So this is the Beast Game Podcast for Pete's Dragon. Thanks.